That's right! Greetings, fellow Onto Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
With the new clash of big screen titans on the horizon, we thought it'd be time to look back on the historic career of one of the star players. From the handcrafted stop motion of Willis O'Brien to the weta-fueled creations of Peter Jackson, let's have an up-close Kongfrontation with the top banana himself. Let us go forth and do damage on the March of Kong. All right, Dragon. All right, so here we are on the March of Kong, on the road to Kong versus Godzilla. And I don't know about you, Dragon. Let's just kind of like lay the groundwork out right now, just for the Kong versus Godzilla of it all. Where I think you and I have had this disagreement before. I think like without question, Kong Skull Island is the best of the MonsterVerse that they've been putting out with these kaiju flicks. As you know, I was super disappointed with Godzilla 2014. That was honestly one of the most disappointing movies of the decade for me, and I still
More
kind of
disappointing
stand
than
by
your
that.
son.
What?
More disappointing than your son.
It's more disappointing than my son. God. And then I think Godzilla King of the Monsters is solid, but it's just I don't know. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's not really super memorable for me. I think I hate to say it because Vera Farmiga, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, I feel like outside of Kyle Chandler, who I could relate to, because let's face it, Kyle Chandler's always the everyman who you can relate to. Outside of him, I just didn't find a lot of likable people, and Vera Farmiga, frankly, I thought was kind of ridiculous. At least the way she was written. Not, she did fine. Just the way her character was written was kind of ridiculous. But Dragon, I gotta tell you, Kong Skull Island, very good movie. In my opinion, I just think that it's for me, the two things that actually hinge on that movie is that I actually like two of the characters. One being the Samuel Jackson Captain Ahab for Kong. I really like that dynamic. And then the other being John C. Reilly's kind of, Robinson Crusoe type character. But Dragon, this is all just a long-winded way of saying this is why we're covering Kong and not Godzilla. Because frankly, I just like Kong better. Godzilla's got a really interesting and storied history in his own right. Obviously, I'm sure at some point we will go through the Godzilla movies. They're all on HBO Max as far as I know, or at least a good collection of them. But we're here to talk about Kong tonight, Dragon, and we're going to get into some of the movies, folks. By all means, this is we're going to hit kind of a trifecta of Kong movies. But I think the appropriate place to start, Dragon, is Kongfrontation and the King Kong encounter, because of course, at the end of the day, we do try and stick to our theme park and Imagineering roots on the channel from time to time. We still like to dip our toes in it. We've kind of expanded into the the broader pop culture landscape, but at the end of the day, we still have Imagineer in our name. So I feel like this is an appropriate place to start, Dragon. And man, this is one of my defining childhood memories in terms of theme parks, Dragon. I would go as far as to say King Kong Encounter absolutely, definitively is probably outside of the first big roller coaster I ever did as a kid, which was the Giant Dipper at the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, and outside of anything at Disney, I think Kongfrontation, King Kong Encounter was definitively probably the biggest theme park memory that I have, like, in my life, outside of the Disney sphere. And the reason for it, Dragon, is that I was the perfect age to be like, it was like, I knew that it wasn't real, but it still absolutely scared the shit out of me. And the great thing about it, the thing that I still love in retrospect, looking back on the whole thing, Dragon, I got on that tram. I had no clue that I was going to see King Kong on that damn tram. My grandma and grandpa, they just said that, oh, okay, we're going to go see Jaws. There's going to be a lot of movie sets. They didn't know about King Kong. Apparently, they hadn't been to Universal since like the 70s or 60s because they had no idea King Kong was there. I knew King Kong existed. I just thought he was only in Florida. I knew of the Florida King Kong. I had no idea there was a Hollywood version. So, Dragon, imagine my surprise when we pull into that damn soundstage, and oh my god, yeah, it took me, like, to me, honestly, the animatronic itself is very scary for sure. But at that point, you're already halfway out the building, especially in the Hollywood version, because we'll get to this with a different version of the attractions. But the Hollywood version, it literally just like opens up like right when you get to the animatronic, like you open out into broad daylight. Um, the thing that really gets to me, the moment that gets to me still in terms of like kind of like the good kind of adrenaline pumping childhood trauma that this thing kind of built into a lot of kids, I feel. Dragon, that helicopter crash. I mean, we'll get into it, but I feel like that helicopter crash is kind of underrated in terms of just like a hardcore, just like, oh man, this is like Toto, we're not in Disney anymore territory of just kind of like a super realistic effect that really puts you right in the moment and being like, oh man, shit is literally going down. So, yeah, Dragon, I got to do it once. I think I was about 11 years old at the time. And like I said, I was kind of at that precipice where I knew it wasn't real, but it felt damn real. And because it felt real, it scared the hell out of me. But goddamn, given what happened just a few years after I wrote it, the 2008 fire, ironically, that's just a year before I got to go to the park for the next time. And Dragon, what was there instead of Kong was the damn Fast and the Furious cars on Kuka arms, which yeah, that was something. But
That's even scarier.
Oh, without a doubt, honestly. But Dragon, I treasure this memory. I treasure it. I didn't even know I was gonna have it when I got onto that ride vehicle. But now looking back on it, looking at the history of this attraction, oh my god, I am so happy that I actually got to experience this. It's like, honestly, Dragon, it's one of the proudest notches I have in my theme park belt, I gotta say. I feel like I get some sort of bragging rights for experiencing this one I did before the fires, and even more so because if I knew this was on the tram tour, I wouldn't have done it. So I feel even more lucky in that regard, that I didn't know that it was part of the tram tour. So it was just because it was like way too hardcore for me. I was a soft little kid, Dragon, in terms of my tolerance for theme park stuff as a kid. Like I was a wimp. It took me, this is embarrassing to admit, Dragon, but it took me until I was like 13 years old to go to the Haunted Mansion. It really did. I had several trips until I actually worked up the nerve to go into the Haunted Mansion. Anyways, all this to say, Dragon, it's just like, it is such a great kind of kind of notch in my belt in terms of the theme park stuff, and I treasure that experience, and I can't wait to get into this great kind of iconic attraction. I feel like talking about this is sort of long overdue, and Kong versus Godzilla gives us a good opportunity. All right, so what is your nostalgia, Dragon? Of course, just to set this up, I encountered King Kong at the King Kong Encounter at Universal Studios Hollywood. And Dragon, you had an up close and personal confrontation with the big man himself at Universal Studios Florida. So, what was your confrontation like, Dragon? Tell me about it.
Well, I'll tell you, and it's very interesting how our stories kind of parallel each other here. So again, while of course we're very kind of different universals, mind you. So just on the whole, too, just to kind of like you went into your whole unrelated sort of King Kong Skull Island thing. Just
yeah,
to
sure,
kind of
sure.
like set up just kind of the Kong of it all for a moment. So I mean, just it ties into the ride big time. So is that King Kong to me, King Kong in thinking about and kind of going back, digging back into the ride here. King Kong is like America's Godzilla.
Oh,
so
yeah,
many
absolutely.
ways. There's an instant recognition that comes with that. And of course, like as a kid, this was probably my first experience, my first introduction to King Kong, in all honesty, before I saw the movie. I mean, I'm a kid at this point. You know, I didn't know about the whole storied history of the black
You
and
know,
white kind of film that.
I want to say for me, I was aware of the character, and I was aware of like the iconography of like him on the Empire State Building and everything like that. I definitely don't think I had seen the entire movie up until that point. I think it was until I was in high school that I saw the entire movie.
Exactly my point is that, so again, outside of just kind of the cultural recognition of, okay, someone, giant monster falls from, the Empire State Building, holding the female star, like iconic. And again, like you know King Kong even though you haven't seen it. You kind of know it from the culture. You kind of There's a vague familiarity with something that iconic. And basically, this is like,
For
like
me,
this.
definitely the closest thing that I saw to the actual movie was the Treehouse of Horror parody on The Simpsons, which, Dragon, that is damn good. It's in black and white. Homer Simpson is King Kong, which is just super fitting. And of course, it's super ironic that given that, The Simpsons would kind of invade Universal in the future. But
Right.
Go ahead, sorry.
But yeah, that's my point. There's like an instant recognition within the culture, and this is like, Kong is like the non-universal horror monster. He was like the monster outside of kind of your black and white horror monsters. Again, like definitely a staple of film and the culture and everything. So I mean, of course, there's a familiarity with Kong. So basically, because of that, I was able to go into the ride quite blind myself, honestly, and that. Oh yeah, King Kong, but not really expecting what exactly King Kong entails.
Right.
It's like you kind of know. It's like sometimes just like you need the fuse to click, but it doesn't click until it's too late. So to speak.
I love that.
So so the
Did you think he was going to be kind of like a friendly kaiju, like a like?
I don't really know what I was expecting in the grand scheme of things because I can't remember. Because if I recall, the exterior is just like Penn Station. It's kind of
yeah, exactly, yeah.
You're walking into, and again, this is like I don't know. See the effect on these. Let me put it this way: the effect of these Universal tour rides really kind of scared me as a kid on a lot of these, pretty much all of them, because they were all so immersive and well done. I mean, like Jaws, Earthquake, and Kongfrontation. All three of these rides very much kind of the perennial kind of tour rides. Mm-hmm. And each of them, again, as a kid going through these, probably in the same visit, if I'm being honest, it was quite terrifying. If you really, now that I really kind of put in perspective, yeah, it probably was all back to back in retrospect.
What about E.T.? Did E.T. do it for you though? Did that kind of calm you down?
Yeah, the E.T. was kind of the nice kind of was kind of the reward at the end of the rainbow in that respect. I mean, even Back to the Future was a little intense with that dinosaur moment, that the Tyrannosaurus Rex. But that's my point. So these rides are all so effectively well done, and that's the thing. This ride, the intensity of the experience, you felt like you were in a bit of peril. And I always here's the thing, even though it scared the crap out of me when I wrote it that time, I can remember it clear as day, and I can now I can appreciate just the sheer ingenuity and the sheer legacy of the ride. And I got to tell you, I've always missed it. Every subsequent visit, since it was gone. I think you had a lot longer than I did. I think I don't know if numbers work. Yeah, I had until 2000.
Oh yeah, you only had it like 12 years. Yeah, I had it for decades.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Like I always, even though like Kong again, it was like a wary, respectful. So like I don't know, this is not the ride I would go on often, but I would respect and remember the experience from where, it was. I always missed it when it was taken away, and there was always the constant reminder. I say this with so many of the Universal rides that are no longer around. There was always that reminder in the parking garage where you see all those logos.
Yeah.
And now,
it's such
that. To me that's the most impactful symbol of Universal Studios to me every time I go there. It's always the park.
You can imagine how painful that is for Universal Hollywood and ET though, bro.
I know, I can imagine. That's because you have like a few very, very few scraps to cling on to. Like I think now there's, I don't know if Spider-Man was always there, but you have Spider-Man, which I mean
Hollywood doesn't have Spider-Man.
That's what I'm saying. You have like the Spider-Man icon, maybe the Cat in the Hat if you're lucky. You got Jurassic Park, and E.T. You got 4 left out of the whole bunch that were there.
I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest with you, with Universal Hollywood in particular, I don't think there's anything left. I think like there's Jaws on the tram tour, and that's about it. Honestly, because even with Jurassic Park, that's Jurassic World now. So it really is just anyways.
So, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, always the most kind of impactful symbol of kind of the bygone era you and I were lucky enough to experience in some way or another. It's always kind of now the concert mine. I don't know if they've changed it because it's been years since I've gone back. I don't know if they've now changed the parking structure or not. I imagine it's so iconic. How can you? But still, it's just it's kind of a sad reminder to the lifers.
But yeah, I don't think they have, because the security checkpoint is in the parking area, so you kind of have to walk through it even if you're not parking there. So I've seen it, and yeah, I'm pretty sure they have like at least Back to the Future. They definitely have a Back to the Future. Probably Jaws too.
Right. Well, right. I mean, like they haven't like added Minions or anything. You think, right?
I don't know. They might have, because Minions is like that whole park is kind of like built around Minions right now.
Last time I was at Universal, Minions was basically, it was built, but it wasn't functional. I really wanted to go on that ride. It was like a big tease of like the gift shop was there, but not the ride. I had very strong emotional attachments to that piece of property on Universal.
Well, I will say that ride is like easily my favorite thing that's ever come out of that property. So.
Well, I just mean like all the permutations of that ride. I mean, I was there for. I mean, was there anything before the Hanna-Barbera?
No, nothing before Hanna-Barbera. Of course, there was Hanna-Barbera, and then of course Jimmy Neutron.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I have strong attachments to basically everything that ride is, and
right.
It's a shame I couldn't get on Despicable Me before, Anyway. Right. But yes, I mean my Kong, the Kongfrontation for me, I mean, in comparison to to the ride, I mean, I felt that the Kongfrontation, in contrast, it's ambitious in its scale and its ambiance. The ambiance is the big takeaway for the ride, because I mean I remember like those red lights, like there's nothing, like there's no tomorrow, and it's like how immersive it is, and ultimately, it was kind of killed by. Yours was killed by fire. Mine was killed by business, by men in suits, and basically, kind of yours awesomely, again, as tragic as it is, yours had the awesome Universal monster movie fate of, again, it died by fire.
Mine is absolutely like, it's an iconic death, to be sure. It's probably
the only way we're gonna kill
iconic
Kong.
Deaths of any theme park thing ever.
Honestly, yours is the way Kong should have gone. I know it sounds sad, but I mean, that like Kong's going down swinging. He's going down like a Universal movie monster. That's the way to go. My way goes like, just like guys in suits, just signing pieces of paper.
I will say that Universal Florida definitively has the way, way better Kong experience now, because we'll get into that. But I feel like Reign of Kong is a very, very good spiritual successor. But we'll get into that later.
We'll get into it.
All right.
But that's kind of my nostalgia. So again, the trauma, a lot of fear, but love for Kongfrontation.
All right. So a lot of this fear was done by none other than my favorite Imagineer dragon, Mr. Bob Gurr.
Who else is going to put that scare in Kong than a man whose last name is Gurr? That's a guy.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I got to politely smile and nod to him one time at the Walt Disney Family Museum. All right, anyways.
So yes, Bob Gurr.
Okay, so Dragon, the interesting thing about Bob Gurr with this is, just really quick, is kind of like a footnote. This is one of the few things that Bob Gurr worked on where it's like, he was really in charge of the animatronic itself, and of course, if you know anything about Bob Gurr, you know that he is the ride vehicle guy, Dragon, and that's honestly what I respect so much about him, is that he has just like put his stamp on those parks in so many ways. Like, because back in the day, for like, I want to say the first 2 or 3 decades of Disneyland's existence, for the most part, if there was anything that needed people to move in and out of in an efficient way that also told the story in a good way, Bob Gurr was your guy. He came up with the Autopia cars. He came up with the Pirates boats. He came up with the Omnimovers, which I think is probably his his magnum opus of his Imagineering achievements. Because those Omnimovers, man, even today, they're just like one of the most functional things in theme park history. But
I mean, the Omnimover, that's Haunted Mansion, right? That's
yes. I
have mad love for the Omnimover too. If that's the
it's a perfect ride system in my opinion.
It is.
It still is.
It's great.
But So Bob Gurr, of course, was hired by Universal to design the King Kong animatronic. And this is a really interesting thing because, of course, King Kong was, this was going to be an addition to the tram tour. So they didn't need him to design the trams. They already had the trams. The thing that had wheels, was already in place. So Gurr was like, oh, man, well, do I at least get to design the ape? Yeah, you can design the ape, Bob. That's what we're here for. And I don't know. I just kind of get a little chuckle in my head.
Also, remember, this is not like just making it for the original Kong. The Kong was kind of back in
vogue.
No,
of course. Yeah, it's a freaking remake of Kong from the 70s, which, let's just say, Dragon, that movie has fallen out. Like, this is absolutely it is one of those phenomenons, Dragon, that I feel like happens more often than people think, where the theme park representation of something will keep something in the public limelight for a lot longer than it kind of deserves to. Cars Land, Cars, thoroughly mediocre franchise, except I really like the first one on a personal level, but even the first one, I admit, isn't a great movie.
Well, Cars is a money printing machine, let's be honest.
But Cars Land, one of the best Imagineered lands of all time and an absolute game changer for the theme park industry. I would say even more so than Harry Potter in some regards. So yeah, it's really, of course, Song of the South and Splash Mountain is a classic example, for better or for worse. So I feel like the same can be said about like the legacy of the 70s King Kong is absolutely not going to be the movie itself. The movie itself, frankly, Dragon, is kind of crap. I mean, it's got some great...
Do you recall if 76 was the one that Rick Baker did? Do you recall?
Yes, it was Rick Baker. And it had great effects. But my God, the way they updated that story, it was super cynical. I don't even...
Do you remember where the big building was? Because sometimes they keep changing the building when they do the remakes. Is that the one where it was the Trade Center? Or is that
it was the Trade Center, yeah.
Okay, that was the Trade. I remember that one as a kid. I always remember the Trade Center one.
Yes. But what I'm trying to say is that the legacy of that movie is definitely not the movie itself. It is Kongfrontation. Of
course.
So, anyways, it's just, this was, of course, the biggest addition to the tram tour ever. The tram tour has a long and storied history that deserves its own podcast to get into at some point, but...
oh, yeah.
But yeah, this really kind of put the tram tour and Universal on the map in a big way, where Universal kind of just went from being kind of like a half-day thing that you went just to kill a few hours, like go on the tram tour, to like, all right, this is a destination. Like this definitely was the biggest thing that Universal had to compete with Disney. And frankly, Dragon, I feel like Kongfrontation kind of outclasses a lot of what Disney has done, like even today. Like I really feel like it's a master stroke with theme park design, with the ambience and stuff, as we'll get into. I truly think it's one of the best designed theme park attractions of all time. So yeah, it absolutely put Universal on the map in a big way, and it kind of paved the way for all the other classic, very ambiance fueled Universal attractions. And of course, like you said, it kind of met the fate with the fire, and now it's now it's a screen tunnel, and that's kind of depressing. And Universal Florida has the goddamn animatronic. Just put an animatronic in a fucking soundstage, Universal Hollywood. Come on, please. Anyways, I'm sorry. All right, Dragon. That's basically my background.
So, should I? Do we want to just keep pressing on with yours then? Because yours it lays the groundwork, and then mine comes into play. Should we just go through all of yours, then start with mine, or should we just kind of keep even keeled here?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much all I got. What do you got to add to mine?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just keep the history train going here. Okay, so 4 years later, gotta keep it all Universal like. So, 4 years later, Universal is in a race with Disney. This is when the big Disney war starts. So 4 years later, so Disney, they're trying to get their movie-themed park in Florida going. So basically, it's kind of a race between kind of the Florida parks and development, kind of like taking it to the next step. And Eisner's involved.
I still think that's probably the most shrewd thing that Eisner ever did with Disney.
Yeah. So, basically, I forget. I assume they called Bob Gurr in again to do the update. I
I'm
believe.
assuming so, yeah, and I might correct me if I'm wrong, Dre. I'm pretty sure he had a hand in the aerial trams.
I know for a fact he had a hand in all of that. I
Okay,
just though I
yeah,
assumed I assume he also had a hand in the original. That's what I'm not 100% on, but I assume he must have.
in the original what?
Well, Kong Encounter.
Oh yeah, absolutely he did, but he designed the animatronic. He didn't so much, like I said, the trams were already in place, so he didn't.
Well, yeah,
I
I
don't
know
even
that. I
with the
meant like
actual
just had a
ride
hand in
vehicle.
like the ride there. But you're right. The ride vehicle that's Gurr very much on
Uh
Kongfrontation.
huh.
Yes.
Uh,
So we call him Bob Gurr again. So even if it's like kind of a similar job on Kong, but to be fair, when they did Kong, they changed that up too. So here's what they did. Now you correct me if I'm wrong. This is one detail I'm a little sketchy on. So
okay.
in so when they did Kongfrontation, there are two King Kongs, two giant King Kongs that are actually roughly
Yes.
9 to 10 feet taller than the one built for King Kong Encounter. Now, remind me, are there
Correct.
two Kongs in
No,
Encounter, or is it just one?
just one.
That's what I thought. So yeah, so Kongfrontation has two for the big surprise factor and the kind of the big they're building up their big banana breath moment.
Well, Dragon, I mean, once again, I could go on and on about like Revenge of the Mummy. Dragon, we'll get to the spiritual successors, but I truly like Revenge of the Mummy in Florida is a fantastic attraction. And my God, does it absolutely outclass the Hollywood version of Revenge of the Mummy in every way? It's kind of sad. It really is. So it's a running trend for for the Florida version to basically be the next generation kind of super HD upresed version of what we had in Hollywood.
so so again, so the original Kong ride was in '86. By '90, they're trying to kind of compete.
1986.
Yes, but appropriate now you think about that. Of course, I'd love to think that was intentional on someone's part, but
Oh, I doubt it.
wouldn't that be great? Because yeah, remember the Kong ride is just it's very historic for what it does in both parks, honestly, but
Uh-huh.
especially in kind of the Florida side of things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think well. Let me put it this way. So again, in competing with built like the movie, I want to say like Hollywood Studios, or I guess at that point probably was MGM at that point, right?
Yeah, Disney MGM Studios.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
right. So the point being
Yeah.
kind of the movie hook of a studio with Star Tours and everything. Basically, trying to put the IP like from the other movies that have been acquired into the kind of the park and really dazzle the folks in a
Sure.
sense. And of course, so basically, Universal being the original, they're trying to step up their game here. Like, okay, what can we do to kind of compete with this? Therefore, okay, let's bring Kong to Florida and kind of like build thing, kind of making an event. Kind of like we're making like a giant old star map here, and we're kind of conceiving of our attractions. We're kind of building a powerhouse. So let's start with the one that really worked in the other one. But how can we take it to the next level? As in, like, okay, let's make it different. How do we sell the cityscape even more? Well, we're suspending from this. Let's take the tram, but let's make it aerial. And again, now you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but from the sounds of things, Bob Gurr wanted to do that originally, right? That's kind of what you're intimating. So Gurr always wanted to do the tram, or is that just a speculation on your part?
No, Dragon. This is just a running joke on my part where I kind of giggle when I think about Gurr being hired to do something that doesn't involve wheels, and he's just like, "Oh man, but I don't get to do the ride vehicle."
Yeah,
But he,
I'd love to think that he wanted to do something like that though, because again, this
oh,
was really revolutionary.
Dragon,
Because
the aerial tram thing very much feels like something that Gurr would do. I mean, for one, from what I know about it, it's absolutely a people eater, and that's something that Gurr was known for was designing very effective high capacity ride systems.
yeah, the thing about that tram too is again, trams usually go forward. That's about it. But this thing can you up and down, which is really revolutionary. And of course, interact and just kind of sell the terror of oh god,
Uh,
the moving ride vehicle in a sense, but it's a tram.
Dragon, do you
So
remember in that ride? Did they have any sort of like perspective effects where you were kind of like looking down at the city at all?
yes,
Yeah, they did.
absolutely. Yes. Well, I mean, basically, you could. Yeah, there was like I can't really describe it well, but it was like you you could see the bottom, you could see the street. Everything was laid
We
out.
should probably save this for later, but
Anyway, but no, anyway,
yeah,
so we'll put a pin in that. We'll get there.
that's
Anyway,
interesting though, because that's very much not in Hollywood.
Anyway, so the point being, so you have two Kongs that are at least 39 to 40 feet tall versus the 30-foot Kong that you had. And
40
there was
feet tall. That's pretty fucking crazy.
Here's the trade-off, though, and this is where things get complicated. The trade-off was to make a Kong of that size and do all your pyrotechnics and everything that they had, and they had a lot of pyrotechnics in this space. It would, between the mechanisms and the pyrotechnics to match and kind of go up in scale, there were frequent power surges and stalls. So the worst case scenario is that you had people suspended in this thing in darkness and possibly facing a giant monster. So yeah, that was the rest. So what they did is they had to tone it down at times. I guess once it became such a problem, they had to tone it down so they could conserve power. So they cut a little bit back on the pyrotechnics and how far the ride would move at times, I suppose. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, the sad story. September 2002 rolls around. Had a run from 90 to 02, and it gets replaced with. With Revenge of the Mummy, and and then soon other things. We'll get there when we get there.
Well, Revenge of the Mummy, I still maintain, is one of the best coasters in Florida. Don't at me, bro.
I'm saying we just killed Kong though, but sure.
I'm saying at this point, if something replaced Revenge of the Mummy, I would be sad. I feel like Revenge of the Mummy is kind of has a legacy in its own right. It's like that thing's almost 20 years old. So anyway,
so Kong found new life. That's kind of the summarized point of my story.
Life
Kong
found a way right next to Jurassic Park.
While temporary, found a way.
All right, so yeah, let's get into the major differences. So the big thing I want to highlight, Dragon, I kind of mentioned it with my nostalgia. Yours has such a significant advantage of having its own individual, show building, because the thing with mine is that
yours is like a tunnel, isn't it?
Yeah, not necessarily. It's a sound stage. Right. But the thing that I do remember, and this very much kind of calmed down my terror as a kid, but I imagine as an adult, it would kind of ruin the illusion a little bit, is that, you get that kind of big close-up encounter with a 30-foot Kong, and, of course you have that awesome interactive effect with, where it feels like Kong's grabbing onto the tram and everything. And that's great, but then the doors open and you're just hit with sunlight, Dragon. I vividly remember that. And like I said, the reason why I so vividly remember being hit by sunlight is that it was such a relief to me as a kid, because I was basically trapped in this hell zone. It was like a nightmare that I was not expecting to walk into, and then the sunlight just hits you and oh, okay, the real world, nice. Dragon, I imagine Kongfrontation did not have that. I imagine it's a much more steady transition back into the loading area for Kongfrontation.
Yeah. By the way, just parenthetically, I've always kind of felt this way. I'm so jealous of the people who got to go on that Universal tram tour, because I didn't have that. You don't have that in Florida. You don't have.
Yeah, it's pretty great still. I mean, it doesn't have nearly as much as it used to, but it's still got a lot of history to it. Still has Jaws. Still has Psycho House. The Psycho House has always been my favorite part.
Especially Freddie Hunt was there.
Of course. But,
okay, so remember that. You're not a nice man.
The weird thing is, I'm not sure if Earthquake is even still around, because the last couple times I haven't done it. But a lot of times with Earthquake, they just kind of reroute if it's not working. So as far as I know, Earthquake is kind of in a weird spot where if it's running at all, it's only part of the time. But anyways.
But yeah, but the reason I bring it up is that, again, I kind of basically the reason I'm really jealous deep down is that it's sort of you got to live the great movie ride.
Yeah.
It always made me insanely jealous because I've always the tram tour is so.
Keep in mind, I missed the great movie ride by mere months, and you definitely got to experience a great.
That is true.
And so there's the trade-off.
Yeah. Because the tram tour is such a storied thing in Hollywood, and of course it's the big landmark of Universal. No matter what advantages Florida has, it does not have the tram tour.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, yes. But yeah, so basically, yeah, you're in Penn Station. The really cool thing about Kongfrontation is that you are so in New York, it's amazing. That's like, honestly,
it's from everything I've seen about it, looks super gritty. Like one of my favorite loading areas in Disney World Dragon is one of the ones that's most realistic, and that's the Rock and Roller Coaster loading area because it's literally just like some grimy like Hollywood back alley. But I imagine that the Penn Station is even grimier. Like there's probably like graffiti everywhere and like
yep.
like kind of like flickering lights and shit, right?
Yeah, yeah, like there's like carved initials and everything. There's a lot of detail put in it. Again, it's kind of like New York in the '80s, but again, this is like this opens in '90, so this is like kind of coming out of that gritty '80s New York.
You know, the interesting thing about that is that I feel like this kind of like exists in a weird in between different Kong franchises in the same way that Reign of Kong does, because Reign of Kong was made basically right before Kong Skull Island, and it was made kind of like off the boot heels of the nostalgia of the Peter Jackson version.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously with Kongfrontation, I feel like it's less so the nostalgia for the 70s version, more so the nostalgia for King Kong Encounter, but but still. Dragon, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
They had the helicopter crash, right? Because as I alluded to, that was to me like even more so than Kong, probably because of the fact that with Kong, at least you get blasted with sunlight at the end of that. The helicopter crash is like pretty much right at the beginning, and it's like right in your face, man. Like I just remember, like to me, that was the most effective thing.
Yeah, Tiki, there's helicopters all up in this ride, buddy boy. There's a lot of helicopter action here. I mean, yes, you have the crash. Yeah, you have the crash. I don't know what it is in comparison to your crash, but it's pretty effective. Yes,
I am so jealous of your Kongfrontation.
You have the crash. You have like the helicopters are like the main sort of the one kind of ethereal lighting you have in the thing is the helicopters.
Right.
And when they show up, it's not a great thing because those helicopters are kind of they're the ones shooting. Basically, the update on the biplanes from the '30s movie are the helicopters. They're shooting at Kong. So it's like when they show up, it's like, hey, salvation! No gunfire! This is terrible. And so they utilize the helicopters really well. And again, it's just this. Here's the really cool thing retroactively looking back on the Kong ride, which I never could place it as a kid, but it makes all the more sense now looking at it in adulthood. Kongfrontation, it's like being in the climax of Spider-Man from the 2002 film.
I can see it, yeah.
Because you're in the Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Again, it feels like such a New York-laden experience. It feels like the perfect Spider-Man ride. Like it basically feels it's so much Marvel and Spider-Man. Like Marvel had always the giant threats, like Galactus and everything. It feels like there's a giant threat in New York, and it's like you're stuck in like the tramway, the aerial tram thing, like from the end of Spider-Man. It's just again it's so it feels so New York, and you're seeing buildings and everything and destroyed fire hydrants. So yeah, that's the perspective thing. So basically, so you go in the Penn Station, they build up Kong on the news and everything, and the idea is you're trying to escape Kong. So you're kind of taking the tramway to escape, kind of like in the Dark Knight, like the Bridge and Tunnel Crowns are in for a surprise. Like you're taking the boats to get out of Dodge. So. And basically, you see all this destruction and the helicopters as kind of the fill-in for the biplane. You see, and this is really imposing, you see just to establish the scale, and I guess this is definitely a perspective thing, even within the ride. Like basically, somehow I can't describe how, but you kind of see everything, even though you may not necessarily be looking down. How you see the street below you, but what you do see, regardless, is a derailed elevated subway play again, very Spider-Man 2-esque now, like elevated subway platform, like a subway train that's been ripped off and is like hanging halfway down.
Ooh, nice.
That's an effective thing right there. It's like, oh god, I mean, it's yeah, and then they use the helicopter. Basically, there's like a 3-act structure of this thing, buddy boy. So Act 1 is you see Kong in silhouette lit against the helicopter spotlight. So you see Kong in silhouette,
okay,
fighting the helicopter and basically jumping off where you're going to see him next.
Hold on, Dragon. Before you get into all these details, let me just lay out how basic King Kong Encounter is, just for comparison's sake.
I have a big question about your thing, too, so go on.
So basically, all that happens in King Kong Encounter is you go into the soundstage, and you're obviously not in an aerial perspective, you know, because you're in the tram, so you're kind of like on street level.
Yeah.
And there's these screens that are in the tram itself, and you know the famous Jimmy Fallon screens, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
And those kind of switch to news footage of, like, you know, there's a giant monster terrorizing New York City, and then and you see like footage of a news chopper, and then that chopper goes down, you know, on the footage, and then the fucking helicopter crashes right in front of you, and that transition from the news footage to it being right in front of your face, like I said, that's super effective. But then, as far as I remember, Dragon, basically all that happens is you just kind of make a turn. There might be like another helicopter or something like still flying above you at that point. But you just make like one turn, and then you're face to face with King Kong. And like I said, the you know, the whole thing with the, you know, him grabbing onto the track and everything, and it feels like he's moving the tram, that happens. And then the doors open, and that's it. So it basically, Dragon, it's basically just kind of like a, you know, like one right turn. Like two hallways with a right turn in the middle.
But still, I've seen that building. That building looks really impressive, though. Like, just like being on the ground floor of this. I mean, the screen idea, for the time, it feels like it would have really sold really well. Like,
oh, it's great. Like, you know, just like I said, like, you're seeing the perspective of the helicopter itself, and then all of a sudden the helicopter is right in front of your face, crashed in flames. You know,
your helicopters may be more impressive. I just know there's more frequent in mine. I don't know if it was necessarily the totality of the two helicopter crashes.
Well, like I said, the big advantage of the helicopter crash for me, in comparison with Kong, is the fact that it's like knee deep into the experience. There's absolutely no light coming in at that point, and it is a small building. That I do remember that there's not a lot of space in there.
See, that's why I'm thinking tunnel, because you are turning so much.
Well, like I said, from what I remember, it's basically just like one hallway, then you turn, and then you go into another hallway.
Exactly. So that's
So. But so yeah, that's my and like I said, it's iconic. It put Universal on the map. That, you know, that animatronic is certainly revolutionary. I wish they would have had a little bit more space to have a better transition out of the soundstage. But yeah, yours sounds just like it's on another level.
Yeah, one thing about yours I kind of saw. I don't know if this was just something they did after the ride kind of fell out of vogue or not, or it was just something they did for promotional stuff. But I saw this image of the King Kong encounter. It really captured my interest. So you know how they have overlays?
Oh, I know what's coming. Yes.
Oh yeah. There's this holiday overlay of King Kong, you know, like a giant, basically in a Santa suit. From what you can see, it's a Santa suit with like a candy cane and a hat. So
I'm not a fan of this, Dragon.
Here's what I gotta know. I gotta know this. Okay, are you telling me the ride actually had him wearing? Oh my god, really?
For a couple years, yes.
I know it's a dumb idea, but it's awesome.
And he had peppermint breath instead of banana breath.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
That makes so much sense with the candy cane now. Oh my god, it's amazing. Oh,
Dragon,
I'm so happy to learn that was real.
I just don't like it because it takes away all the intimidation factor.
No, it does. It does. It's incredibly unsettling now. But that's what I'm saying. This is the kind of thing would not have traumatized. Oh, look at him. He's in a giant Santa suit. We're fine.
Right. It's kind of what you were imagining in your head. Oh, God.
Yeah. So, anyway.
You know, the sad thing is, I'm pretty sure they were doing that right up until the end. So that was like the final legacy of Kong.
So we put him in a giant Santa suit, give him a candy cane, and just to add to the effect, just to impress the little kiddies, the breath smells like candy cane.
I mean, let's. I feel like we've buried the lead on the banana breath, man. The banana breath might be the single most iconic part of everything here.
Very famous, of course. By the way, with the design of Kong, there's this one. Kong, look, I'm not trying to rub dirt in the wound here, but it's just like, yeah, Kong does look better in the Kongfrontation. One, because he's bigger, but I mean, mainly if you look at the original, and he has like these weird whiskers. I never really knew what the deal was in Kongfrontation. in King Kong Encounter. He had these whiskers, but they kind of nixed that when they kind of added like more fur or something. I don't know what they did.
I feel like it was because the King Kong Encounter one was more accurate to the 70s version.
I think so. So. But the banana breath, it was just kind of like, if you really think about it, I mean, does it make a lot of sense? But it's fun though. It's a great idea. It's like, yeah, get banana breath.
I want to say that was a Gur thing.
It's got to be a Gur. No, I'm pretty sure. I remember there's like a whole fan system in Kong though. Like you have to blow it out. So Gur had that input on that. So he sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, where was this? Basically, Act 1 was like basically when I say Act 1, I mean it's like a whole it's only like 5 minutes, but it's an impactful 5 minutes. You know,
I totally get you, man. Believe me, I break down 5-minute theme park rides into 3-act structures all the time.
That's what I'm saying. I love that. So the queue and kind of like when you enter the ride, you have that build up with the silhouette and the shadow. You see you hear Kong roar, and you see him like battling the helicopter just in silhouette, with like a little projection of the helicopter spot or the floodlight, whatever.
Yeah.
So then you have basically you kind of turn the corner or something, and there he is. And again, the big impact is, oh my god, it's like pretty much like things have turned red because of either between the pyrotechnics or just the lighting that they're using on the ride. It's hard to describe, but somehow it's red.
It's definitely a mix of the two, but mostly the lighting, I think.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're there and you're looking at Kong, and again, you're just kind of you feel like you're in peril, and that's the effect. It's like, oh my god, this is actually happening. There is a this again, it's the fear part of your brain taking over before the logic part takes over, because everything has been so well built and they built up so much legitimacy with your setting. And again, you feel like you're a fictional character from a comic. You feel like you're a hostage in a Spider-Man thing or something.
I gotta tell you, Dragon, I still feel that same kind of fear with Dinosaur and Animal Kingdom with the Carnotaurus.
I can buy that. But yeah, and again, honestly, it's also the fact you're in a confined space. That's the other thing. You're in kind of like this confined space, like hanging precarious. And I kind of undersold this. You also have, and again, this is kind of when they're still figuring this out. It might have actually I don't know if it predated. It probably didn't. The Jaws ride the Jaws ride came in the 90s, right?
Oh man,
no, I'm convinced
the Jaws ride opened with Kongfrontation. They were both opening day attractions. I'm just not sure what the timeline is for Jaws and its inclusion into the tram tour.
That's the thing. See, I'm pretty sure. I know in Florida it was 90.
Pretty sure it was before Jaws was. I want to say I'm almost sure of it.
All I can say is, in the Florida side of things, I'm convinced that you had Kong, then you had Jaws. Either a year later.
No, on the Florida side of things, it was absolutely, they were both opening day attractions that were very problematic to run, and they both had their issues with operation. But yeah, they were both there opening day.
Absolutely. And so again, with those, like the big tour built ride is that you have, your kind of your cast member tour guide who is basically giving you like kind of a happy-go-lucky tram tour that then goes awry. And
I mean, first of all, can we just point out the obvious advantage that Jaws has in Florida over Hollywood, where you're on a fucking boat?
Yeah.
Jaws is. I mean, I love Jaws in Hollywood. I really do. I think it does hold up. But man, if you're not sitting on the right side of that tram, like if you're not sitting on the side that's actually facing the water, forget it.
Yeah. If you're I don't know why I'm just thinking like the lefties are the ones getting left out. Like, hey, I'm over. I get to see people being scared by Jaws, but not Jaws.
Right, yeah. And I mean, even then, you're just on a bridge, and it's kind of like a ridiculous just. It's not scary.
It takes the terror out of, like, guys, did you even see the movie? Do you remember why it was scary? Do you remember what Brody wanted to do? He wanted to stay on land because guess what? At the end
of the day, I just appreciate the fact that whole area is themed to Amity Beach, like it is cool to kind of like have a whole Amity Beach set in the tram tour, but I don't know. It leaves something to be desired.
Yes.
The Universal Japan, man, just hold on to that Jaws ride for as long as you can before, until I get a chance to go there. That's all I'm saying.
Right. But anyway, so yeah, so you have like kind of the built-in kind of like little kind of tour guide kind of element there. But also is like kind of weathering the storm with you, which again is like also selling the experience. So again, so Kong's there. Again, you're in this precarious situation. It's like then the helicopters are coming. They're not making anything better right now. Where they're shooting at Kong, and then they have the lightning. Again, it's like, oh god, now he's got hostages and he's throwing them up and down.
It's kind of like the super high-tech version of being caught between the cannons in the ship and the fort in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. So then basically you get away for a moment. This is where it really comes into play here. You have the quick second appearance of Kong. You literally turn the corner of a building or something, or however it works, and boom, there's Kong, even bigger because he's closer to you. And it's just the scale and the surprise that something that big can move that fast, or at least the illusion that it can move that fast. And then that's where you get the banana breath. And here's the thing I will always remember. So it's less like it was more terror than smell at that moment. It was more the mist. You could see and feel the mist coming out.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
it was like again, it's like an actual gorilla. It's like remember that I mean a real obscure poem. Remember in Tarzan when Jane first comes face to face with Kerchak and he's like breathing into that little ladle?
Yes, I do.
It's like that. It's like just like any primal experience with a gorilla. It's gonna be like that little like predatory like. Little like there's your mist. It's like, oh god, we're in trouble. So again, sheer terror, like, oh god, when will it end? We're doomed.
Yeah, and unlike Hollywood, you don't have like a big burst of sunlight to look forward to.
Like Spider-Man, save me! It's like, oh. Anyway, so again, it's the agility and the power of the ape, just is terrifying. Basically, you get the full Fey Ray experience. So then basically you just kind of luck out, and again, after a lot of shaking and peril, you eventually just kind of get out of there. And basically, you kind of come into the station on the upward level, I suppose, at least the way it's kind of framed. And you get to, and this I completely forgot about this because again, sheer terror of the experience. So when you look back on it now, you kind of look at the ride, oh man, this was such a cute idea. So when you come back. You get a news reporter. By the way, the news reporter was an actual news reporter they got for the ride.
Oh, nice.
So, you basically get the news report about what happened. They show you the footage from the ride of you being... So basically, the camera that's built into the ride to take the pictures of all the happy, all the terrified people, or happy people in the ride. They video that footage, and there's like a little camera moment, so I assume they'll print it out, make it to a picture. So the actual news footage that they're recording, and basically... The banana breath thing, I assume, either the first Kong or the second Kong has a camera built into them to take your picture or something.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Whatever.
That's
so somehow,
amazing.
From that perspective shot, they're getting pictures of all and video of all the folks, and they show you on the news. At the end of the ride, you're being pulled back into the station, and like the tour guide person says like, "Hey, we made it, we survived!" It's like it's a joyous little event.
I honestly love that so much.
Isn't that such a cute idea? Like, oh, you survived, and then look, there's a little footage, and basically it's like the way, I don't know if this differed between the cast members or not, if it was like the same script all year round or not, but it was like this little thing of like, hey, we're all heroes, you all survived. It was like, hey, you guys, you're the real heroes all along, the hostages were the heroes. It's kind of nice.
Oh, Dragon, that's a staple of Universal, my friend.
Yeah, it's really nice. I just
like at the end of the day, we really didn't do anything, but goddamn, if Optimus Prime isn't going to give you the thumbs up, you know what I mean?
I know. It's just that just goes to show, Universal absolutely they perfected the tour attraction, man. They just did.
They perfected the something goes wrong genre.
Yes, they did so well. Oh my god, so well. I mean, Great Movie Ride's great, but still, it's no. I mean,
Great Movie Ride doesn't have any like something goes wrong elements.
Well, I mean, it gets hijacked, Tiki, so...
The hijacking in Great Movie Ride is the thing that I don't like about Great Movie Ride. In all honesty, it kind of slows the pace down to a halt.
Well, they get more or less threatening over the years, to be honest, depending on
what you
get. So, all right, let's see. So so now we kind of reached the end of the ride. We should talk about the spiritual successors, I suppose.
Yes. Okay, so, Dragon, have you ever done Revenge of the Mummy?
Afraid not.
Howard.
Yep.
It doesn't go upside down or anything, Dragon. It's not that intense of a coaster.
What is it? How does it move? Tell me how it moves.
Okay, how can I describe it?
Does it move backwards?
There's a couple backward sections, yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't go upside down.
No, no upside down, no inversions, maybe about a 40-mile-an-hour launch.
Hmm.
But honestly, it doesn't have any big drop. It's mostly just like kind of like swoops and turns and stuff. It's mostly being honest with you.
Well, to be fair, I might think I was misinformed over the years about how exactly that ride worked, that just did not calm my wariness of it. So maybe that was it. But sure.
No, I mean it absolutely doesn't. Like I think it's honestly a pretty like. If I'm being completely honest with you, I would honestly say that Space Mountain in Magic Kingdom is probably more intense, just because it's more out of control. And with Mummy, like I said, Mummy has more of an emphasis on dark ride elements. But yeah, with the Mummy, the really funny thing about the Mummy ride is honestly the one thing that Hollywood gets right is that they don't go around this wraparound bullshit where it's like you're on the set of a new Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, but the set is actually cursed and the real Imhotep is there, which is the plot of the Mummy Florida attraction, and it's fucking ludicrous but hilarious at the same time.
I gotta tell you, that sounds kind of fun.
It is fun. It is fun. They have a mummified cast member as an animatronic.
Well, speaking of Easter eggs, there's a little Kong statue in that ride.
Uh-huh.
And they actually kept some of they couldn't tear down some of the Kong stuff in that attraction. So it's like some of the rails in the ride system still there if you really look for it, I guess. Or like if you could put the lights on and look for it, I guess.
Yeah. But no, I genuinely think that Revenge of the Mummy is honestly an even higher level in some regards. I mean, to me, it's got. Do you want me to spoil? Do you mind if I spoil some of the moments for you, Dragon?
Well, Tiki, I was planning on going next year, but why don't you?
All right. Well, just you're not actually you're being sarcastic, right?
Yes, Tiki. I haven't gone in years, not by choice.
Okay. Just making sure, because
I don't think I'm going to miraculously go next year. So yes, tell me.
I have a friend who's very sensitive about theme park spoilers, so I'm just making sure. All right, so there's one moment where you're like basically you're in this catacomb, and there's like all these pits all around you, right? There's like 3 pits on either side, like 3 or 4 pits. And then all of a sudden, like these giant like Imhotep mummy animatronics just jump out of the pits. Like it's just this big jump scare. Like they just literally like jump out of the pits and are about to attack you. Then there's a moment where it's kind of a fake out, Dragon. This is the best moment of the attraction by a long shot. It's a fake out where it looks like you have pulled into the station, and there is a cast member. Like basically, it's a screen of a cast member, but it looks like the cast member is kind of like behind like a window or something. You know what I mean? Like behind. Basically, you can see the cast member's silhouette. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Sure.
And but then the cast member gets eaten by scarabs, and the ride keeps going, even though it looks like you're in an unload station, like it's a total fake out, and the ride just keeps going. And then there's a point where there's a literal ceiling of fire over your head, and and there's a full blown Imhotep animatronic, which is also super impressive. I mean, just for a coaster, Dragon, it's great. It's phenomenal. I honestly think Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure is probably the better coaster in terms of just like the actual stats and how fun the ride is and everything. But I definitely think Revenge of the Mummy is the best dark ride coaster in Universal Florida. Like it's flat out like, even counting the dark ride, the coaster elements, it's still one of the best dark rides in Universal Florida, period. But more importantly, Dragon, let's talk freaking Reign of Kong. What do you think of Reign of Kong?
Well, from what I've seen, it basically looks like it looks kind of like a version of Kong 360 that's been plussed a little bit, where you
It's
have
Kong
more.
360, but it's good.
Pretty much. I mean, good, but relatively good. You know, good in that like it has more built into it, so it's not just basically go into like kind of a space and like, hey, screens. In this case,
Yeah.
it's kind of screens, but like there's not the ambiance is more there, and you're on Skull Island, and you have like a little Kong head towards the end, right? You have like kind of the friendly Kong, the less scary Kong.
Okay, I'll break it down for you. So first of all, the queue is amazing. The queue is fucking amazing. It goes through, it goes through the native village. You see an animatronic of the shaman witch doctor lady from the Peter Jackson movie, and she's honestly super creepy. You see an animatronic of the giant leech creature that eats Andy Serkis in the movie. And one of the really cool things about the attraction, Dragon, I don't know if you know this. Do you know about the animatronics that host the attraction, the animatronic tour guides?
We are still talking rain, right?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. No, I don't.
Okay, so each basically you're on kind of like the ride vehicles are very close to how the ride vehicles are set up on Kilimanjaro safaris at Animal Kingdom, where it's not quite a tram, it's more like a truck, if that makes any sense. Like, it's kind of a tram, it's just not as long as a tram.
Gotcha.
All right, and there, up in front, you've got a host, a tour guide who is an animatronic, and there's I think 4 or 5 of them, and they each have backstories and different character, and and the whole idea is that you're going after a tour guide who got lost on Kong Island. Basically the whole company is doing tours of Kong Island. It's Kong Island is kind of
Skull Island.
Skull Island. I'm sorry. SK. We'll get there. Basically, Skull Island is kind of like a tourist trap in a way in this version of the story, and they're kind of but things are going wrong, as they tend to do. You got that great, probably the best moment in the ride is just right when you pull out, and you got that freaking awesome turnaround where you see the whole exterior of the Skull Island with the wall and everything, and I mean it's a fantastic exterior, Dragon. It really is, and just the view you get of it is just great. And then I will say a lot of the attraction is screens. Most of the attractions is screens, to be sure, absolutely. But the ambiance is so much better than in Kong 360, which is literally just a tunnel. That is a tunnel. There are no turns in that thing. It is just a straight shot tunnel.
VR the ride.
Right, exactly. But no, this is they do a good job of you're kind of you're making different turns. There's definitely a few physical rock walls and trees and stuff like that kind of break up the screens to a certain extent. And as for the animatronic, first of all, it's huge. It's not quite as big as Kongfrontation, but it's still big. I would say it's probably at least as big as the original Hollywood version, if not bigger. And second of all, it's not entirely pissed off, but it's very naturalistic, the animatronic, in that it's it's not quite friendly, but it's not quite pissed off either. It's more so just cautiously observing you as you go by, and kind of it's on guard. And I feel that is the most realistic depiction of what Kong would actually be like, if you were face to face with him and you weren't antagonizing him. So yeah, I mean that animatronic, the queue, like I said, is phenomenal. Easily one of the best queues in Universal Florida. The exterior is fantastic. I honestly think Reign of Kong, it's not quite Confrontation. It's really not. You can't beat the ambiance of Confrontation. Confrontation was a big game changer. I don't really think Reign of Kong is a game changer by any means. But I do think that Reign of Kong is a pretty underrated attraction, and I think it's much like pretty much everything else in Florida, it's leaps and bounds better than its Hollywood counterpart. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what there is to say about Kong 360 that we haven't covered, Dragon. It's literally just like a portion of Reign of Kong.
It encapsulates the movie to an extent. It's a lot of CG.
I mean, not really. It encapsulates one scene from the movie. It encapsulates the T-Rex fight. That's about it.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. It just kind of encapsulates them.
Well, no, but we'll get into this when we get to Peter Jackson, King Kong, Dragon. But there's a lot going on with Peter Jackson, King Kong, in terms of how he depicts Depression era New York City and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right about that, but yeah.
Where like that movie does not get enough credit for being a time period movie, and we'll get into that when we hit that movie. But anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess just final thoughts, Dragon, unless you have anything else to talk about with the spiritual successors.
No, just final thoughts. That's all.
All right.
So yeah, as I said, Universal absolutely perfected the tour attraction. You had your Jaws, you had your Earthquake. King Kong was the right amount of Hollywood versus Earthquake's kind of scare, kind of scare factor, if you will. Because I mean, I think Earthquake legitimately terrifies me. I'm not joking. I mean, that Earthquake ride really did a number on me.
Okay, let's talk about the Earthquake ride for just a minute, because we might not ever get a chance to talk about it. It might not ever come up again. The thing that I vividly remember about it, and from what I remember with the Hollywood version, it definitely was just a tunnel. Like just a straight hallway, but it was a gauntlet, man. It was a gauntlet. You had the flood. The thing I remember though, Dragon, was the subway train derailing. Do you remember that?
Yes, Tiki, I remember that.
That was that was on another level. Anyways,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That they changed that to a Christopher Walken retheme?
I'm trying. Do you know when they got the Walken retheme?
I think like around 2008.
You're sure it was 8?
Not entirely.
Yeah, I tell you, I think it might have been. I remember there was I could have sworn there was a Walken. I thought I could have sworn I want to say I saw Walken once, but I don't know if it was a POV.
Hold on, I'm gonna look into it really quick.
But yeah, the Earthquake, man, that one, like Kong has like the reassurance of like, okay, so once you're in, especially afterwards, like, okay, well, it was a giant girl. I should have realized that, but I was so caught up in it. Where Earthquake's like, oh my god, that was real. That was scary. That wasn't fun at all. And what is that? That's that simulation of torture right there. That's not great at all. Who made this ride? I'm serious. Like, I still think Earthquake was, while effective and while well done.
It sounds like it was your alien encounter.
I mean, I guess it was just that one was like, who came up with this as a ride?
You see, it didn't scare me as much as Kong did, because with Kong, you just had the creature factor to it.
But who's signing up to experience a natural disaster?
Oh man, you'd be surprised. I live in San Francisco, and we kind of like have a masochistic. Well, I don't live in San Francisco, but I'm close to San Francisco, and we kind of have a masochistic, like, yeah, let's do earthquake simulators. That's a thing in San Francisco, Dragon. It's weird.
Right.
Anyways.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Did you have the year?
No. 2008.
Okay, well, I guess
January 2008.
8. Well, man, last time was 12. Then I don't think here's the thing. I know about that walking thing, but I don't think factually it could have possibly been there when I was on that ride. So I don't know where I'm getting that from, but I could have sworn there was like a celebrity component. Walken's like on the screen or something, but I don't know. Anyway, so what my point? Anyway, unless you wanted to linger on Earthquake anymore.
No, I'm good.
So that's the thing. So for me, King Kong with kind of the tour attractions, is that King Kong had the right amount of Hollywood versus Earthquake, which is just purely scare factor to me. And Jaws, I feel ultimately is the more iconic ride, but that's the more iconic kind of landmark kind of staple. But Kongfrontation, especially in looking at it and kind of reflecting on it, Kongfrontation though is a perfect balance. it kind of got it. It was the perfected form of the original with Kong Encounter. But with in Universal Hollywood. Gotta remember, this was like the first ride to either die or be replaced. And basically, in the sense, kind of a reach an end and get replaced, which of course was kind of that the ultimate sad tale that would lead to E.T. At least on my side of my neck of the woods. E.T. is the last holdout, which is such kind of a scary thing to keep in perspective. Like all the
That's
greats.
funny because on my neck of woods, E.T. was the first to go.
I know, it's so weird how that worked out. E.T. is like it's the last holdout. It's the last.
And ironically, E.T.
spot.
was replaced with a very, very, very inferior version of Revenge of the Mummy.
And like ultimately, it's just this thing of like again, Kong was the one that kind of put him on the map, and it also was kind of the first to go, at least with Kongfrontation. And like yes, Reign of Kong. Yes, there was Reign of Kong. So Kong has kind of made a resurgence. Kong is back in a sense, and again, there's more. There's kind of a blending of the 360 and the original and Kongfrontation for sure. But you know what? Ultimately, it's not. It doesn't have the same zeal. It doesn't have the same kind of elbow grease of the classic Universal. Of that classic Universal era of these. Of basically Universal putting you in your favorite movies. You know what I mean? It's like you're not quite in the film where it's like, hey, you're in the film. We're like, no, it's like you were. They went to such extreme measures to put you in the movies, which again was like so much what it feels like to be Universal's mission statement of like they're trying to give you the full like watching a Universal film like an experience and a ride where you're basically. You're riding on that roll of films that's going through like the projector and putting it on the screen. It's kind of a magical experience. And again, Kong really kind of ushered that in. So Kongfrontation, these Kong rides in general, like a huge stamp on Universal that cannot ever be forgotten, I feel.
All right. Well, folks, that's all for tonight. Tune in next time as we venture deeper into SKULL Island and play the drums even faster as the trek goes on for this March of Kong.
King Kong ain't got nothing on this.